Okay, so what I've just done, is this possible in the realm of things? Adding two or more of the same category?
Yes.
Okay.
Why would you want to do that? We have our reasons, but we want to hear what you would do.
Well, in my mind, if I'm comparing multiple clients upon one another, that's something that I'd want to know how, let's say, for instance, right now we've got a client that does the same thing as a competitive client in a similar area. We would want to see, how are these two, sets of X, Y, Z performing against one another, and to determine what we're doing better here versus what we're doing better there.
So the way it's designed is you can add multiple accounts of the exact same type, several different Facebook accounts, several different analytics accounts, all into one set of stuff.
Huh.
And look at the data, compared to each other.
That would be really good to know. I've had that conversation with a lot of our clients on a regular basis. Everybody wants to know how they can do better than the competitor, and if you have some sort of an understanding of that competitor, and you can kind of say, okay, well, this seems to be working for another one of our teams. What can we, understand from that to take to our other clients? That's a big benefit, I think, to my team and everything for using that. Let's just go next. Look at that. I don't think it bothers me so much that it's here because I can still, pay attention to this. So that doesn't necessarily bother me so much that I see what the report is. As for this,
Well, kind of the question here is as you click on it, would you by default it's going to go to the description. When you very first add it, would you prefer that it shows you charts and you have to dig for the descriptions? I mean, it still has the name and stuff. Or do you prefer that it starts with the descriptions? Once you change it to charts, they're all charts. Mm-hmm. But the question more is, every single time you begin to build a new set of reports, which would you rather, that it instantly goes to charts or to descriptions?
no, I think it's probably okay to go with that, the definition of it. Because if I know that after I do that, and if I go to charts after that, and I bounce around to this one or that one, it's going to continue to do that, and I don't constantly have to change. Okay, well, I've got to go back to this to do this. So, no, I think that actually works out just fine in that scenario. Interesting. Okay.
Now, when you hit this, what are you intending to happen when you do
I don't know. I keep hitting it though, and nothing seems to happen.
Gotcha. Okay. So the idea behind this is that is the thing that ultimately will save everything that you're now doing. You'll be able to save it and now open new ones and go back to other ones, which, of course, since we only have the one profile. Anyway,
Got it.
That way you have a whole client, you've built all these reports, you've done all the stuff you had saved, and then you can say, now I want to open one for another client.
All right.
The same kind of thing.
Okay, I kept waiting for something to happen, and I thought, okay, maybe
This
I
one
needed.
will go to the settings, but in our case, it resets everything.
Got it.
So,
At this point, I was thinking, okay, maybe I've got to have these in and these in as well before that
right.
button does anything to
Right. Now,
activate.
normally you would hit that and we go and say save it to drive, and this would now be a thing you could open and close and come back to, and if you went to the web version, you could see it there. That kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, when I want to, say for instance, print one of these reports, how do I do that?
Okay, so before we go to that, real quick, I noticed at no point have you ever tried to do anything with the chart itself. So, like, let's say you're trying to interact with it.
As for just changing dates or...
Well, so like one of the examples here is actually being able to look at what a particular data set says, those kind of things.
I see.
Like if you're trying to drill down or do anything like that.
No, at this point, I did not realize that I could drill down on any at this point. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Same scenario for these. Would I find more information if I clicked on one of these versus what's already up there?
That's kind of what we're wondering is what you would like it to do.
I would find it beneficial to have more information or having a utility that maybe can explain to me why December 16th was a better day than, you know, the two preceding days at this place versus, you know, if there's just a little bit of a way to kind of identify more information at that spot in there, I think that would be beneficial as well.
All right. Let's go back to go and pick a report, any particular report that you're interested in.
Okay. Let's do total clicks.
All right. And then you yourself just said, well, now what can I do with it? What would you want to do with it?
What would I be doing with this?
Yeah, so generally you created a report. There's all these charts. There's all this stuff.
Once I've got this information, I'm typically looking for performance comparisons. How can we say, how do we understand what, like right now, for instance, I've got an e-blast campaign that's going out right now, and so I'm monitoring pretty consistently on every 2 hours or so how many people have clicked it, how many people have visited the website and everything else from that. So having a report like this that shows me the progress, for instance, right now I'm looking at total clicks on like a Google AdWords campaign. I would like to be able to monitor those clicks, and then maybe if there's a way to identify, like we were discussing on the earlier one, what maybe is responsible for, a drop in the number of visits or the increase in the number as well. That would be something that I'd like to know. After I've got all that information, I'm still big on having these in report form where I can print out or email to somebody or share this information with others in our group. So that's kind of what I'm looking for now, is how do I save this information, and then furthermore, how do I distribute this information to
right. So you've got save and you've got share. Mm-hmm. So those are the two things you're concerned with.
Yeah.
Printing being one of those particular ways. What else? I mean, if you've got it, is there anything else? If you're going to share it, can you define share in any other ways than print? I mean, is there an email you had said? So I
sure,
guess
yeah. I definitely would be sharing through email primary, I think. For myself, obviously, I typically print stuff out myself. Having an ability to compare the various reports, even. Sometimes maybe I want, for instance, to compare a report from 2014 to 2015.
Right, so time over time.
Yeah, so that's the type of stuff that I think I would be able to evaluate and see how to use those things and display them and present them to others as well.
Now, you had said that you had campaigns that you were running now, and you wanted to monitor their performance. One of the things I didn't hear you say anything about was goals. Sort of.
What is the goal?
What are the goals versus the activity versus anything like that? Is that relevant to you? I mean,
it's certainly relevant to us. For instance, right now, one thing that we seem to be doing with ours is comparing against the numbers. So we just sent out an e-blast campaign that went to 11,000 people roughly. And through that campaign, we actually split it up into two separate email servers to send it out. One half of it, about 2,000 of them, went through MailChimp. The other 8,000 went through Constant Contact. And so I'm actually simultaneously monitoring those two identical email campaigns to see if there's any type of an impact using Constant Contact versus MailChimp
Right.
in this this list. So having a way, I guess, to look at different types of information like that would be beneficial.
Now we've got these 5 data sets in here. Off the top of your head, 'cause the whole point of this is to add more and more data sets. What other systems would you want us to be able to, instantly to just go, what would be great is if, obviously MailChimp and Constant Contact you already mentioned, but can you think of anything else that you can drag data in from?
So you've got Google AdWords. Let me go back to all the data sources and just kind of examine what we've got here. Analytics, Bing, AdWords.
And just so you know, Facebook ads is the next one that's coming in there, as
Got
opposed
it.
to just Facebook Insights.
Yahoo kind of goes under the Bing umbrella, so I don't know that one's necessarily anything that I would add to it so much. What are the big ones that we're looking at? Is there any way to do anything with like a Pinterest or
Possibly. That's the kind of the question is we've got all these APIs,
Yeah.
and now we've just got to start picking the next APIs to go to that your data would be pulled straight out of your account into our system.
I think like Twitter, if there's any way to do a Twitter one, would be a beneficial use. Pinterest would be a benefit, I think, to some of our clients. We're still seeing people. I just 20 minutes ago helped somebody with using Google Earth, and even though Google Earth is about to be destroyed, they're stopping it. But things like that, like a MapQuest or something that kind of shows that type of information as well, kind of helps us as well, because we do a lot with the real estate and the development side of things. So location seems to be beneficial to what we do.
Gotcha. All right.
What else?
Your initial, just impression of the system itself, as far as just kind of its look and feel, as opposed to its usability. What's your kind of your impression on
Well, I think it takes maybe 2 to 3 minutes to kind of get a feel for what I'm doing, but after that, it seemed fairly straightforward and simple to use. So it's not something that I think I would have any problem using, and I think people who are on a day-to-day basis pulling reports or using reports, this would be a very easy thing for them to use. I think someone that doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the report side of things might take an hour or two or so to kind of really get themselves versed in it. But it doesn't seem too complex that it wouldn't be something that...
Now, can you envision a particular kind of tutorial that might make the whole process easier? If you were if we wanted somebody who did not have a lot of experience to be able to use this, what would you kind of think that we would have to do for them?
Yeah, I do think a tutorial of some sort is definitely of use. Earlier, you were asking me about having that instruction guideline that comes up and appears at first. It works for that, and I think as somebody that uses reports on a regular basis, I would use it once and not probably return to it too much. But I think somebody that doesn't necessarily use these types of things would maybe need more of a tutorial session for something like that. Where would I find something like that? Maybe under the gear or something?
Right. Yeah, we're thinking about where having a consistent, back to tutorial kind of thing.
I think it would probably, my first intuition would be to go to the gear to look at something like that, essentially, because using any other software program, Google anyway, the gear is where you can find your information in your tutorial. has there been any thought to like a search bar being included in this somehow?
No, not at this point. So how would you envision us using that?
Well, I wonder if I've got reports saved, but maybe it's a report from, I don't know, 2 years ago. And I want to do kind of we do a lot of what we call competitive comps, where maybe we've got a new development that we're working with in, I don't know, Charlotte, North Carolina. And we want to know about all those other developments in the Charlotte area, or in North Carolina in general, in the western part of the state. If I've done a report on that, 2 years ago, and I kind of have that in my mind, I could see myself coming to something like this, and while I may not know the name of that report right off the top of my head, searching for it through something like this could be an easy way to kind of retrieve that information and go for that.
Now, you're talking about retrieving reports that you've already done. The data in this system at this point is live, always. Anytime you come back to it, anytime you reactivate it, you're back to current. Now, obviously, if you've exported or emailed a report, something like that, there's a copy there. But there's no historical.
It'll never be.
It's always today backwards. So if you wanted to, sort of like if you go to Google Analytics, it's always right now.
Yeah.
Plus, and you can do searches and stuff. Do you see a value in, if you have a report to a certain point, being able to sort of save a snapshot of it as this, and somehow being able to come back to it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do that with Google Analytics all the time too, when I'm trying to cross compare. Right now on Google Analytics, the easiest way for me to do it in an immediate time frame is say, screenshot it and compare it directly with the screenshot of, the Google Analytics report for, June of 2013 or something like that. And so I just compare them that way. Having that kind of feature on this where I'd be able to say, okay, well, here's June versus, July is something that I think would be beneficial through that. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. We want to kind of jump over here to the web version real quick. And like I said, there are a lot of additional features here on the website that are not here yet, and there are some features here that are not here yet. But kind of doing the exact same thing, since you've already worked with that one. Let's talk about going ahead and working through sort of the web interface if we can. So the data sets are already set up over there because those data sets are actually live.
Gotcha.
So they're reading out into real data.
Okay.
So that's why there's no more to add or no more to log in, because they've already been pre-logged in for you.
Gotcha.
So the next thing you would actually do is go ahead and add some reports.
Got it. So add report binder. So let's say I would like to learn about the e-commerce again.
And here's a report I would recommend, the overview one.
All right. Huh. Okay, so I'm seeing it.
Now in this case, there are live reports under there, but you have to just get to them.
Got it.
Oh, sorry. It sat for more than an hour. I forgot. When it sits for more than an hour, the keys log off on purpose. Therefore, it's no longer connected to the data. That's funny because that was the one thing that I had been warned about. Make sure here. Okay, there.
Okay. So now I've got Google Analytics. I'm able to look at the analytics. This project.
Now there's a different feature here that we're going to be bringing into this that deals with the simplicity of the report or the complexity of the report. So if you click that,
fast or easy.
It won't actually move at this point. But what it's going to do is it's going to actually show you the individual data sets that you're seeing over there.
Okay.
And also the source. Let me try something here. I've got the screen zoomed in because we were having some problems with some of the buttons. It makes it hard to read. There we go. If we come back here. So now you can actually see what the data sources are that are being used.
Okay.
And if you click them, you'll turn them on and off.
So now it has been turned off. When it goes to red, it's no longer active, correct?
Right.
Got it. So in this case, there is no yellow. But there is a green. So green is not displayed. So, huh. Okay. Okay, so now I'm able to look at the day-by-day details. So this is one of those things that I'd mentioned earlier. I get to this and I want to click, for instance, on December 10th and just find out, what led to that spike of.
Now, by doing that, are you saying that you'd like the chart to come back up and only represent activity on December 10th?
No, I think what I'm looking for is more information to appear. Just almost like a little radio box to pop up with something that maybe could give me more information on that date. If there's anything I don't know where that information would come from because it seems like everything's going to be found right here.
Right.
But I think that I just want to maybe drill down to another level into, if I segment it even more, for instance, okay, I can look at that December 1 through the 22nd and say, okay, well, this is great. Now I want to, drill down even deeper to December 5 through the 10th.
Right.
And kind of understand what caused this spike during this time specifically, and then maybe say, okay, cross that with, okay, we figured out it was send an email out that day, for instance, if that's a possibility on December the 5th.
So let me ask you this. So this report is essentially all the data. Just all the data that happens to be coming in. So there's so all of these individual data sources are appearing here. Now you'll notice that a lot of them are so big that the other ones become difficult to read.
Sure. Yeah.
So there is a normalization feature, which essentially brings them all to sort of a common ground. So even though a particular thing may be low, other things you can now sort of see them. And then from here, you have the ability to start, like you said, comparing spikes. So if you knew that there was a particular day, you wanted to see everything else that related to that particular thing, you could kind of come in here and say, all right, why are there all these individual spikes that are here? And you have the ability to turn off different data sources.
So I can say, okay, well,
Yeah, so I'm going to turn these all off. And then you can start picking different things. You say, show me the clicks, or show me, let's find something that's actually got data related to it. Like completions, so there are completions that are coming through. And as you sort of start turning on different things, you can kind of figure out what pieces relate to each other. And then from there, what you talked about, then print a report. You can highlight certain pieces that you think are important. I'll say that.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. I like that. I like that you can kind of do the call outs to this is an important thing that if you create this, you need to communicate it to somebody else in your project team that these are some key focal points or something. Yeah, I think that could be better.
One of our thoughts here is, since the reports now are all pre-configured, is at that point you could also then save that as a report in that report book. You know, whatever you've said, this only this, and this, and that's now a report that's always there for you. You know, say, let me compare.
Yeah, that would be really beneficial, I think, because there'd be a lot of times where we reoccurringly go back and pull those same metrics to see, how to just perform, in the following 6 months after we did it the first time. So yeah, I agree on that.
So kind of the idea with the tablet too, though, is in our thought is that, and I don't know if this has value to you or not, is that the data is live all the time. So kind of like what you were talking about earlier about checking stuff. How relevant is it to know that you could open the tablet if you already saved that particular report, go to click it, and the data is live right now all the time?
I always like knowing that. Whenever I have those abilities to look at real-time information, and I'm always wanting to know that. And I think for specific fields, it's more important to know that kind of stuff.
Right.
And for us, it seems to be a big deal because we'll send out an email or some sort of something that just happened, and we're watching the distribution of it to see how many people have opened it and what to expect the response rate to be, or what that report may be focused on. So, quite frankly, having that live important import of data is very beneficial on my side, I think.
Now, what about scheduled reports? So, let's say you build out, 2-3 report binders, you pick several reports, they're configured the way you want. It runs for the last 30 days, what the report is.
Yeah.
But the system automatically fires up the first of every month, runs the report, and exports it to Excel or PDF and emails it out.
Yeah.
You don't even have to open the thing, it just does it. What about something like that?
I use it. It's beneficial to me. With the real-time reporting that we just mentioned, that's more beneficial to me personally. But when I'm working with a client and trying to represent stuff for them, we do scheduled reports every 15th of the month and 30th of the month.
And how do you do that now?
Right now, it's all essentially by hand. I mean, we can use Google Analytics has essentially an ability to kind of pull the information together for us.
Right.
But sometimes I just haven't been satisfied with what I get out of that. And I'm concerned with, for instance, this is something that I would love to see in something, but I feel like the Google Analytics terms in some cases, for instance, if we send a report to a client who doesn't understand the Google Analytics, we dumb down the phrases and make them a little bit more user-friendly to understand that,
Right.
So if we have the ability to, label this ourselves and say, PPC means pay-per-click, or, search ad actually means an ad which has text in it, something like that, where we can kind of narrow it down and make it a lot more simple for them to understand it, and then, save that functionality and send it so that every, 5th of the month or something, that report's already saved and ready to send. Yeah, that's very beneficial.
Yeah, so let's say that's exactly what this does. Let's say that you can go in and change the titles of the reports and change the little metrics are called or something like that. And once you save it, it's saved. And the report, if you leave it exactly the way it is and it's scheduled, it's always there. So you can always log in and look at it right now, what's happening right now. But otherwise, it's also just going to, it's the 5th of every month, fire up, run, turn into Excel, email out to you or whoever you want it to. And it's already configured the way you had it.
Yeah.
You see value in that.
I do see value in that. I think that with all of our clients, there would be a value for that type of thing because they always get the repeated performance markers that we send out to them. Another thing that I think would be of value, and it may already occur with this program, is notifications of milestones. For instance, like let's say you've got a pay-per-click campaign running for a project, and you've been monitoring it over 6 months or so, and then finally in month 4 you hit let's say you set a milestone of 5,000 visits to a website over the course of a 30-day period. Once that goal's been hit, I'd love to know exactly when that's hit so I could go back
you
and
want
say,
an alert.
Yeah, just a simple
set a
email
goal,
to me or
the results of some goals hit.
yeah. How cool is this? You just accomplished this goal
Right.
that you set out to accomplish. And so, I think that's a benefit because it in that real time, wow, we just hit it.
Can you think of other kinds of alerts you would want? I mean, like, so it doesn't have to go to the client necessarily, it just comes to you. But since if you're sitting in a system, you're now able to start setting goals. So like, let's just say it's cost per click, or it's amount of traffic to the site, and it's whatever. And you set these particular things. Is there the notifications of these things? They don't necessarily have to be considered goals. They can also be considered targets. So
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
1,000 visitors to the site every day is what we expect.
Yeah.
Have you considered at all anything like, if you're averaging a particular number, and the system you simply say, look, if at any particular point our traffic drops by 25%, I'd like an email.
Absolutely, because
or raises by 25. I mean, it's not even a goal particular, but if our traffic suddenly doubles on the website, I want an email right then.
Absolutely, because that's going to cause us to, we need to know that type of stuff, whether it's, we just get coverage in some phenomenal magazine, or, if there's a drop in traffic, the vice versa, is our website down, or is something happening all of a sudden that has, caused this mood swing, if you will, of this specific site that we're talking about. All of those things, if there's some kind of a quick notifier.
Now, what about the timeliness of the data? So, like, right now we have the system just by default goes out and grabs the data once a day because it's not running alerts or something like that. And you can come in and tell it to show you, data from right now. How important is it for most of your clients that you have that instantaneous access? Isn't something that you need all the time, or is it something that you just need sometimes?
I would say from the client's perspective, they don't want it every day. But
Right.
when they want it, they want it.
Okay.
So
So you need a way to get the data refreshed to now.
Exactly.
whenever it-
Exactly.
Normally it's just sitting there, not doing
it's going to stay stagnant for the majority of the time. But then there's that one moment when the client's on the phone with his boss
Right.
and getting grilled, and he fires out the email to you saying, what are the latest numbers from X to Y, or tell me this notification.
Now, we had in here print, but let's say, here, let me come back over here. Let's say that we are here in the tablet, and you've got charts that you're looking at. 1 second. And one of the things we're thinking about giving the ability to do is to select several of the charts and then go to a new screen, and all those charts show up at one time, and be able to save that as a dashboard. And it gives you a URL that you can then send out to a client, and at any point they can come in, and the data will always be refreshed every day as the sets of charts that you want them to see, or that you want internally for you guys to go see.
So we have that collage of the 4 charts.
The 4 charts, and they're all live, and here's the URL for it, and you send it to the client.
And that client can go to it
Anytime.
and it will be refreshed from time to time. I think that's a real benefit. I don't think that I've never done that to a client and provided that information to them like that, but I think they would appreciate it. I don't think the client would use it too much, but I think it would be a benefit to the person providing that to them,
Right.
and I think the client would appreciate having that ability to see.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Well, first of all, let's say that the thing's free, and we have some of the features you see over there are now in here. Is this something that you think you would use?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good for us as an advertising agency to use and a marketing firm. And I think it's also beneficial for, say, the project management staff and the people who are on the phones day to day with our, clients on how to interpret the data that comes out of this.
Cool. Let's talk about cost, price. Because obviously there's going to be a free version,
Sure.
but there's going to be a cost associated with it. Value-wise, we have several factors that we are kind of looking at in the sense of, how many different data sources can you use? How many profiles can you build? So like let's say you have several different clients, you need to build several different sets that are all saved differently. Then within each of those, you've got, well, how many reports do you want to save? So you built out this whole report, say there's 10 different reports and all this thing, and now you save it. And I don't mean like save it to review it later. I mean like this is the active thing
Yes.
that you've got to go look at. It's live. It's whatever. You can save copies of your current point, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about I built this thing. This is what I'm using now. And you may want to build several of those for different reasons. You may say I want one that's only internally for us, and I want one that's external for the clients. It shows entirely different stuff, but that's still two different full versions of the thing.
Yeah.
So, and then you have how many people can log into it, and the licensing around those kinds of things, and those factors that we're trying to kind of weigh out. But looking at this as sort of a system that, let's say you were just going to use it for yourself, you're a single client, and you're going to build reports just for yourself, and let's say there's going to be 3 reports, and you've got these 5 data sources, and these kind of things. This is a software service; it's a monthly sort of fee.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of right out of the gate gets you? Not looking at it from the agency side yet, but just I'm a single e-commerce shop or whatever, gloves.com. Strikes you as a price range that right away you're like, that makes sense. I wouldn't even blink at that.
I'd probably say somewhere around the $20 range.
Okay. Now, if we're talking about a agency, not huge,
Sure.
but okay, I've got 7 to 8 clients I would want to use this for right now. Maybe I want to use it for more or less, things like that. So I'm going to need multiple profiles for each of those and several reports for each of those. So let's say the thing is 5 different profile setups, and then each one of those can have 3 reports, that kind of stuff. What kind of price range do you suddenly look at that and say, okay, this is for my whole smaller agency here, on a monthly basis, what would make sense?
I think I'd find myself comfortable in somewhere around a 40 to 60 range,
Right.
probably, depending on with maybe an ability to add on based on that. So if I say in that 40 range, I've got 5 charts, and for an extra $5, I can add another 2 charts or whatever that becomes.
Yeah, we're talking about the full. You got all the charts, you got all the report books, you got
unlimited, everything.
But once you save one for a client, however you've configured it,
that's one.
That's one.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could always delete it and start over or whatever. But if you want to be able just to have it run every month or check in on it whenever you want, that's one.
Yeah.
Now you got another one and another one and another one.
Let me ask you about this: if you turn off one of your charts, it's already designed